The vast void of space unfolded before Captain Marcus Hawkins, like an ancient tapestry woven with starlight and secrets. Beyond the reach of any familiar star maps lay the Andromeda sector, a frontier where darkness danced with the embers of long-forgotten wars. Here, at the universe's raw edge, the human warship Resolute Dawn cut a solitary figure against a backdrop of shimmering nebula and the silent chorus of distant quasars. Aboard the Resolute Dawn, every creak of metal and hum of the engine served as a constant reminder of the ship's hard-won survival. The corridors, dimly lit by pulsating emergency lights, echoed with the footsteps of a crew whose determination was as palpable as the cold metal beneath their boots. In the command bridge, a window revealed the cosmic ballet outside. Vivid hues of violet and indigo clashed with the stark, starry abyss, creating a scene that was both beautiful and forbidding. Captain Hawkins stood at the helm, his eyes reflecting the flicker of distant suns. His gaze, steady and resolute, surveyed the swirling chaos beyond the viewport. He carried the weight of history on his shoulders, the memory of a humanity pushed to the brink, a people who had clawed their way back from the ashes of oppression. His resolve was as unyielding as the iron that held the ship together, and yet, beneath the hardened exterior, a storm of unspoken grief and fierce hope churned. In that silent moment before the storm, Hawkins recalled the legends of the Andromeda sector. Rumors spoke of ancient technologies and hidden rebel havens scattered among the ruins of forgotten star systems. It was here, in this interstellar wilderness, that humanity's last beacon of resistance flickered defiantly against the encroaching darkness of the Galactic Empire. The Resolute Dawn was more than just a warship. It was a symbol of an unbreakable spirit, a vessel carrying the collective dreams of a people yearning for freedom. Around him, the crew moved with a quiet urgency, each member immersed in their own battle against the odds. Technicians monitored arrays of flickering consoles, their faces lit by the cold glow of data streams that charted the nebulous expanse. Navigators, with hands steady on their controls, plotted courses through gravitational anomalies and treacherous wormholes that scarred the outer reaches of known space. And in every whispered conversation or determined glance, there was an unspoken agreement. They were the last line of defense against an empire that sought to extinguish their flame. The air on the bridge was thick with anticipation. Every sensor beep, every shifting shadow on the starfield, hinted at possibilities both wondrous and perilous. The silence was a canvas upon which fate was being painted in broad, uncertain strokes. For Captain Hawkins, this was more than just another mission. It was the culmination of years spent evading the Empire's relentless grip, a final stand on the precipice of oblivion. In the midst of the vastness, a spark of hope ignited. With the weight of destiny pressing down on his broad shoulders, Captain Hawkins whispered a promise into the void, a promise that the spirit of humanity would not falter, no matter how dark the horizon. And as the Resolute Dawn sailed deeper into the unknown, every star in the Andromeda sector bore silent witness to the courage of a man determined to turn the tide of history. In the heart of the Galactic Empire's vast war machine, where power was both absolute and ruthless, a different kind of silence prevailed, one filled with cold precision and the weight of destiny. Deep within the fortified halls of Nova Imperia, the capital planet pulsated with the orderly hum of military might, its corridors lined with luminescent panels that bathed everything in an eerie, unyielding glow. Here, in the nerve center of imperial ambition, Admiral Vortigern Kale orchestrated his grand design with a mind as sharp and unrelenting as the blades of a cosmic executioner. Admiral Kale's office overlooked an expansive vista of interstellar battlegrounds, a live tapestry of strategy and conquest that stretched into the void. From this high vantage point, he surveyed the movements of his fleet with a meticulous eye. Every starship, every formation was a calculated piece in a vast game of chess, and Kale, the consummate strategist, held all the pieces in his disciplined grasp. His gaze, cold and measured, penetrated the veneer of loyalty displayed by his subordinates, revealing instead a relentless determination to crush any rebellion that dared to threaten the Empire's dominion. In a sparsely decorated chamber that exuded authority and austerity, Kale sat at a sleek metallic desk engraved with symbols of victory and imperial heritage. The walls, adorned with holographic displays of past conquests and tactical maps, testified to a legacy built on unwavering resolve and the sacrifice of countless souls. His uniform, immaculate and adorned with metal that chronicled his ruthless efficiency, seemed less an article of clothing and more a suit of armor against the moral. Within these walls every command was delivered with surgical precision. The admiral's voice, calm yet imbued with an undercurrent of steely resolve, cut through the ambient hum of technology. In strategic meetings with his closest lieutenants, he laid out plans with an almost prophetic certainty, leaving little room for error. His words were as calculated as his maneuvers in battle, each syllable a reminder of the Empire's unyielding pursuit of order and control. The discussions were devoid of sentimentality. Here the only currency was power, and weakness was a luxury that could not be afforded. Yet, beneath the formidable, there lingered a flicker of something more personal, a trace of the burdens carried by a man who had known both ambition and loss. In rare unguarded moments, Kale allowed himself a fleeting reflection on the cost of his convictions. The faces of those lost in the relentless campaigns he had led haunted him, not as regrets, but as grim reminders of the stakes involved. Every decision, every calculated risk was weighed against the imperatives of destiny and duty. Outside his inner sanctum, the Empire's war rooms buzzed with activity. Officers and strategists, their expressions as unyielding as the star systems they navigated, reported in rapid clip tones as they monitored rebel movements and coordinated fleet maneuvers. The atmosphere was electric with purpose, a testament to a regime that thrived on order, efficiency, and the iron discipline of its military doctrine. Every holographic projection and tactical readout was a vivid portrayal of the relentless pursuit to subdue the flicker of rebellion that dared to defy the Empire's vision. As Admiral Kale continued to direct the grand operations of the fleet, his mind remained fixated on one looming challenge, the lone human warship that had ignited whispers of insurrection among the ranks of the oppressed. Its audacity was both infuriating and intriguing, a stark, unpredictable. For Kale, the existence of such a defiant ember of resistance was a call. Was a call to arms, a challenge to be met with the full force of the Empire's might. In the shadow of his grand ambitions, amidst the calculated chaos of interstellar warfare, Admiral Kale steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation. The imperious silence of Nova Imperia was a prelude to the storm that would soon engulf the galaxy, a storm that promised to either reaffirm the Empire's unassailable dominance or herald the beginning of its ultimate unraveling. In the shadow of cosmic isolation, a secret transmission cut through the static of the Resolute Dawn's communications system. The signal, cloaked in encrypted urgency, summoned Captain Hawkins and his trusted officers to a clandestine meeting, a gathering that promised both hope and peril. Inside a secure briefing chamber, lit by the soft glow of holographic star maps and tactical overlays, Captain Hawkins stood before his assembled crew. His voice, measured yet impassioned, broke the silence. "We've been given a directive, one that could turn the tide of our struggle," he declared. The room, filled with eyes reflecting equal parts determination and trepidation, listened intently. At the head of the table, Commander Lyra Miles, his second-in-command, spoke up with a calm authority. "The message comes directly from the High Council of the Rebellion," she explained, tapping a shimmering projection that detailed enemy coordinates and fleet movements. "They've identified an opportunity. The Empire's fleet, however vast, has vulnerabilities. Our intel suggests that the Empire is stretched thin along the Andromeda fringes." As the holographic display rotated, revealing swirling clusters of enemy ships and hidden rebel outposts, a murmur rippled through the room. Young technicians, battle-hardened pilots, and strategic officers exchanged determined glances. Each of them carried scars from previous skirmishes, a tangible reminder that every mission could be their last. Hawkins leaned in closer, his eyes scanning the faces before him. "We stand at a crossroads," he said softly, yet firmly. This mission isn't just about engaging a superior force, it's about reclaiming our destiny. We must disrupt the Empire's control, however briefly, to ignite a spark of rebellion that can never be extinguished. His words carried the weight of every sacrifice made and every fallen comrade who had believed in a future free from oppression. The room filled with a renewed resolve, punctuated by whispered reassurances and determined nods. One young ensign, voice trembling with a mix of excitement and fear, asked, "Captain, what are the chances? Can we really take on an entire fleet with just one ship?" The question hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Hawkins met the enigma with a steady smile. "It's not about the odds," he replied, his tone a blend of conviction and defiance. "It's about the courage to face them. We are not just fighting for ourselves, we are fighting for every soul under the Empire's yoke." His words, simple yet profound, resonated with the collective spirit of the crew. Over the following hours, strategies were laid out with a precision that bordered on artistry. Plans were drawn on digital canvases that flickered with potential attack vectors and escape routes. Detailed simulations were run, and every crew member was assigned a role that was crucial to the mission's success. Dialogue sparked like live wires, heated debates over maneuvers, quiet exchanges about past losses, and solemn promises of loyalty that transcended the fear of battle. As the meeting drew to a close, the chamber fell into a contemplative silence. Each person absorbed the gravity of what lay ahead, a mission that could very well be the last stand against an empire whose tyranny had left a trail of broken worlds. Yet, amid the uncertainty, there was a palpable sense of unity. The rebels' resolve was not forged in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to confront it head-on. Captain Hawkins, now alone with the fading hum of the debriefing room, allowed himself a moment of private reflection. The weight of command pressed upon him, yet the promise of freedom shone brighter than any star beyond the viewport. In that quiet moment, he reaffirmed his commitment to the cause, a pledge that every risk taken, every sacrifice endured, would ultimately pave the path to liberation. Thus, with hearts steeled and destinies aligned, the crew of the Resolute Dawn embraced their perilous calling. The spark of rebellion was kindled, and from the depths of space it would grow into an inferno of hope, a hope that dared to challenge the oppressive shadow of the Empire. In the cold expanse where darkness clashed with fleeting bursts of starlight, the Resolute Dawn found itself drawn into an ambush. The vast emptiness of space, once a serene canvas of distant suns and swirling nebulae, suddenly morphed into a battleground as sensors blared warnings of an approaching Imperial patrol. The silence of the void shattered in a cacophony of alarms and rapid-fire commands echoing through the ship's corridors. On the command bridge, the atmosphere transformed into a hive of focused chaos. Captain Hawkins' eyes locked onto the glowing display as enemy ships emerged from the black, their silhouettes angular and menacing against the cosmic backdrop. "Battle stations," he barked, his voice rising above the clamor. The crew, having long prepared for moments like this, moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, their hands dancing over controls and consoles. In the heart of the skirmish, the Resolute Dawn twisted and turned with a fluid grace, executing evasive maneuvers that defied the expectations of its adversaries. Laser fire crisscrossed the void in dazzling, deadly patterns, each beam illuminating the void in sharp, brief flares. The ship's hull shuddered as impacts rippled across its surface, yet the resilient vessel held fast, its armor absorbing the brunt of the enemy's assault. Amid the chaos, navigator Rena Ortiz, her gaze unwavering on the star maps and sensor readouts, called out, "Captain, we're approaching a gravitational anomaly. If we time it right, we can use it as cover." The suggestion cut through the tension like a lifeline. Captain Hawkins' response was immediate, his tone decisive, "Adjust course now, make it our shield." In that instant, the Resolute Dawn veered sharply, plunging toward the anomaly, its engines pushing the ship to the limits of its endurance. Within the tight confines of the command bridge, every crew member felt the surge of adrenaline as they witnessed the unfolding ballet of warfare. The sound of rapid-fire communications filled the air, orders interwoven with technical jargon and bursts of emotion. "Shields at maximum," shouted the chief engineer, his voice a mixture of urgency and determination. "Return fire on my mark," the tactical officer responded, fingers poised over the control panel as he readied the ship's countermeasures. Outside, in the black tapestry of space, the enemy ships adjusted their formations, their deadly beams momentarily pausing as they recalibrated to the unexpected movements of the lone warship. Amid this fleeting hesitation, a volley of well-coordinated counterstrikes erupted from the Resolute Dawn. Explosions blossomed in the void like dark flowers, their debris scattering in a lethal shower of metal and plasma. In the midst of the firing exchange, Captain Hawkins maintained a cool, steely focus, his every command slicing through the chaos. "Hold steady, crew. Remember, every moment we survive brings us closer to freedom," he declared, his voice a beacon in the storm of conflict. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Every decision carried the weight of lives and the fate of a rebellion. For a moment, time seemed to suspend as the ship navigated the dangerous embrace of the gravitational anomaly. The anomaly's pull was both a threat and an opportunity, a tumultuous dance of force and counterforce that the Resolute Dawn exploited to slip between enemy fire. The calculated risk paid off as the ship burst out of the anomaly's grasp, emerging on the other side with a trail of destruction left in its wake. As the Imperial patrol limped away, nursing its wounds from the skirmish, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the Resolute Dawn. The crew, though exhausted and bearing the scars of battle, shared a brief, unspoken moment of victory. In the quiet aftermath, as the hum of systems steadied and the distant echoes of combat faded into the background, Captain Hawkins allowed himself a moment of reflection. The encounter had reaffirmed a truth he knew all too well. In the vast, indifferent void of space, the courage and resolve of those who dared defy tyranny could carve out miracles in even the darkest moments. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Resolute Dawn continued its lonely voyage, its crew emboldened by the skirmish and steeled for the trials that lay ahead, ever closer to the confrontation that would define the future of their rebellion. In the aftermath of the skirmish, the Resolute Dawn drifted into a fragile, yet every sensor and heartbeat on board pulsed with the relentless drumbeat of an impending maelstrom. Deep in the heart of the warship, the corridors hummed with activity as every crew member prepared for the next phase of a battle that loomed on the horizon like an ominous specter. The echoes of recent explosions still reverberated in the minds of the crew, a reminder that each victory came with its own price. On the bridge, Captain Hawkins stood before a holographic display that painted a vivid picture of the cosmic theater ahead, a sprawling canvas of enemy fleets poised like dark storm clouds against the glittering backdrop of space. His eyes, intense and unwavering, scanned the tactical maps as he weighed the risks of the coming conflict. "We've barely escaped one snare, and now the Empire is gathering its full," he murmured, his voice a blend of resolve and cautious forewarning. Beside him, Commander Lyra Miles and several senior officers huddled over the projections. They debated strategies in low, urgent tones. "We must exploit the weaknesses in their formation," one officer suggested, pointing to a gap in the enemy's defensive grid. Another countered, "But if we move too quickly, we'll expose ourselves to their counterattacks." The dialogue crackled with both hope and the sharp edge of desperation, as each member sought the perfect balance between audacity and prudence. As plans crystallized, the ship's tactical bay transformed into a war room lit by the cold blue glow of digital star charts and battle simulations. Every plan was dissected with mathematical precision, a symphony of data and intuition interwoven into a daring strategy. The crew's voices rose and fell like the crescendo of a cosmic orchestra, each command and counterpoint carrying the weight of lives and the future of a beleaguered rebellion. Even as the crew plotted their maneuvers, the tension aboard the Resolute Dawn was mirrored by the inner workings of Admiral Kale's command on Nova Imperia. Across the vast void, Kale meticulously adjusted his battle plans, his mind a cauldron of ruthless calculations and personal ambition. In his private quarters, the Admiral's gaze softened for a fleeting second as he studied a display of historical victories and hard-won campaigns. Yet, beneath that brief moment of introspection lay a steely determination, a commitment to crush the rebellion with an efficiency that brooked no mistakes. Back on the Resolute Dawn, Time seemed to slow, as the crew's preparations edged toward a critical juncture. The hum of engines, the flickering of data streams, and the shared glances of steely resolve formed a quiet counterpoint to the distant roar of impending war. Hawkins, with a furrowed brow and steady hand, addressed his assembled officers. "This isn't just another engagement," he declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "This is our moment to disrupt an empire, to force them to reckon with the spirit of humanity. Every calculation, every maneuver we execute, brings us one step closer to reclaiming our destiny." In that charged moment, the weight of command bore down on him, a responsibility he had carried through countless trials. Yet, he found solace in the unity of his crew, a collective force that turned uncertainty into a beacon of hope. With a final nod, Hawkins signaled the commencement of their next operation. The ship shuddered as engines surged to life, propelling them deeper into the heart of the enemy's domain. As the resolute Dawn navigated the labyrinthine pathways of gravitational anomalies and hidden asteroid fields, every sensor beep and every whispered command underscored the urgency of their mission. The battle lines were drawn, and the space between hope and tyranny narrowed to a single, treacherous corridor. Outside the viewport, the vast emptiness of space concealed the brewing tempest, a rising storm of imperial might and indomitable resistance, destined to clash in a symphony of fire and fury. In the quiet moments between tactical bursts, Captain Hawkins allowed himself a brief, solitary glance at the stars, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay beyond the immediate chaos. The rising storm was not merely a manifestation of the Empire's might, it was the embodiment of a universe on the brink of transformation, where every act of defiance, every calculated risk had the power to ignite a revolution. Thus, with hearts steeled and spirits ablaze, the resolute Dawn sailed forward into the impending storm, its crew united in purpose and unyielding in resolve. The battle for freedom was no longer a distant dream. It had become a palpable, electrifying force, ready to reshape the destiny of a galaxy gripped by tyranny. In the vast theater of cosmic war, the inevitable confrontation erupted like a supernova, a dazzling, violent display, where titanic forces clashed in a dance of light and shadow. The resolute Dawn hurtled through the void, its hull trembling under the onslaught of enemy fire as Admiral Kyle's vast fleet converged like a swarm of vengeful locusts. Every sensor aboard the warship pulsed with alarms, painting a frenetic mosaic of enemy formations and looming projectiles. The bridge transformed into a vortex of intensity. Captain Hawkins stood at the helm, his eyes burning with resolve as he directed his crew with a surgeon's precision. "All hands brace for impact," he ordered, his voice both calm and commanding amid the chaos. Around him the crew responded in synchrony, each station a cog in the machine of defiance, every command a lifeline in the impending maelstrom. Outside, the battle unfolded with breathtaking brutality. Streams of laser fire crisscrossed the darkness, igniting the void with sporadic bursts of incandescent fury. Imperial warships, massive and relentless, moved with predatory grace. Their beams struck the resolute Dawn like shards of a shattered star, yet the resilient warship swerved and countered with daring maneuvers that defied logic. In the heart of the clash, the lone vessel appeared as an ember, small yet fiercely burning against the overwhelming tide of steel and fire. The strategic ballet on the bridge was set against an awe-inspiring backdrop. Holographic displays flickered with tactical readouts, each a testament to the desperate gamble being played. Navigator Ortiz's steady hands charted a course through fields of debris and enemy salvos, her commands interlaced with calculated risk. "Captain, adjust to Vector 37, use that cluster of asteroids for cover," she called, her voice slicing through the clamor like a beacon in the storm. In a symphony of destruction and resilience, the resolute Dawn launched its own barrage. Countermeasures erupted in a dazzling display, a defiant counterstroke that sent explosions scattering like cosmic confetti. Every volley from the human warship was a declaration, each burst of energy a promise that the human spirit would not yield. The clash became a conversation between fire and metal, each explosion echoing the unyielding will of those who dared challenge tyranny. Amid the cacophony, moments of stark intimacy emerged. Captain Hawkins locked eyes with his first mate during a fleeting lull in the barrage, a silent exchange that conveyed both the weight of impending loss and the fierce hope that united them. In that charged glance, the bond of shared sacrifice was palpable. It was the unspoken language of warriors who knew that every moment was both a heartbeat of defiance and a countdown to destiny. Yet as the titanic engagement raged on, the tide of battle shifted unpredictably. Imperial formations, seemingly invincible, faltered under the relentless assault of human ingenuity. Admiral Kyle, observing from his distant command center, adjusted his strategies with cold precision, his mind racing to recalibrate the immense force arrayed against the solitary warship. His orders rippled through the fleet, a reminder that even titans can be imperiled by the spark of rebellion. For the resolute Dawn, every maneuver was a gamble, a calculated risk to exploit the chinks in the Empire's armory. Amid the chaotic ballet of space combat, time itself seemed to slow. In the heart of the conflict, each fraction of a second held the promise of salvation or the threat of annihilation. The ship shuddered as it banked sharply, narrowly evading a barrage that threatened to tear it apart, while behind its resilient armor, the crew fought not merely for survival, but for a future forged from the embers of defiance. The symphony of war reached its crescendo as the resolute Dawn locked into a daring offensive. With a final defiant surge, the ship unleashed a devastating counterattack that rippled through the enemy ranks. Explosions cascaded across the void in a mesmerizing, deadly display, each impact a reminder that in the heart of a galactic conflict, even a solitary flame can ignite the dawn of revolution. In that moment, amid the chaos and brilliance of interstellar combat, the clash of titans was more than a battle. It was a declaration of humanity's indomitable spirit. The resolute Dawn pressed forward, a beacon of hope amid the darkness, its every maneuver etching a defiant promise into the tapestry of the cosmos. The relentless cacophony of battle began to ebb, leaving a haunting silence in its wake, a silence laden with the weight of impending reckoning. Amid the smoke of shattered debris and the lingering scent of ionized metal, Captain Hawkins found himself at the epicenter of the maelstrom. His hands, still steady from the barrage of commands delivered moments before, now trembled with the burden of choice. This was the hour when ideals collided with the harsh demands of war. Inside the battered corridors of the resolute Dawn, the aftermath of the cosmic clash had left scars both visible and hidden. Crew members huddled in dimmed alcoves, their eyes reflecting the grief of comrades lost and the sheer exhaustion of survival. In the command bridge, a single red light pulsed, a reminder that while victory was within reach, it came at a grievous price. The intercom crackled with reports of critical damage, each voice narrating the unfolding tragedy with a mix of stoic resignation and fierce determination. Then, as if drawn by fate's inexorable pull, a direct communication pierced the silence. A holographic transmission material on the bridge, a solemn face shrouded in the indigo glow of distant stars. It was Admiral Kyle, his expression unreadable, yet imbued with a bitter pride. Captain Hawkins, his voice reverberated, carrying the gravity of centuries of imperial conquest. Your defiance ends here. In that charged moment, the bridge transformed into a battleground of wills. Captain Hawkins' gaze hardened as he met the Admiral's challenge with unyielding resolve. "Admiral," he intoned, his voice echoing like a rallying cry for every soul longing for freedom. "Today, the tyranny of the Empire falters under the weight of its own arrogance. I will not yield our future to the chains of oppression." The exchange was terse, a verbal duel where every word was a sharpened blade. As the conversation unfolded, it revealed not only the strategic maneuvers of two opposing forces, but also the raw vulnerability of men entrusted with shaping destinies. Admiral Kyle's voice, laced with both contempt and a weary sorrow, admitted, "Your hope is a dangerous weapon, Captain, one that could ignite a fire too fierce to control." His words were not merely an accusation, they were a testament to the Empire's conviction that order required sacrifice. Amid the verbal sparring, the resolute Dawn trembled under another salvo, a last desperate attempt by the Imperial fleet to assert dominance. In the ensuing chaos, a breach in the warship's core threatened to unravel the very fabric of the vessel. Without hesitation, Hawkins leaped from his command seat, sprinting through smoke-filled corridors toward the engineering bay. His orders were shouted over the din, and his crew rallied behind him as they fought to stabilize the failing systems. In the bowels of the ship, amidst flickering consoles and the rhythmic pulse of failing power cells, Hawkins confronted a stark reality. The ship's survival hinged on one irreversible act, a sacrifice that would divert the Imperial barrage, giving the crew a fighting chance to regroup and perhaps turn the tide of the battle. The captain's eyes met those of his chief engineer, a silent conversation of mutual. In that fraught exchange, it was clear that this moment would redefine them all. With a voice heavy with both determination and sorrow, Hawkins declared, "Initiate the self-destruct sequence on the auxiliary reactors. We'll use the resulting shockwave to disrupt their targeting systems." His words were laced with the irony of hope and despair, knowing that such an act could cost lives but might also deliver a final crippling blow to the Empire's stranglehold. As the sequence commenced, the ship shuddered with the impending promise of annihilation. In a final act of defiance, Hawkins stepped out onto the observation deck, his silhouette framed by the distant indifferent stars. There he allowed himself a single-pane smile, a farewell to a life defined by sacrifice and the relentless pursuit of freedom. In that solitary moment, the captain's eyes shone with an unspoken promise that the spark of rebellion would outlive him, that every sacrifice would be the seed from which a new future would bloom. The ensuing seconds stretched into eternity as the resolute dawn trembled. In that heart-stopping instant, amidst cascading sparks and the deep rumble of controlled destruction, the Empire's advance faltered. The shockwave, a testament to human ingenuity and the audacity of hope, sent a ripple of disarray through the enemy fleet, an echo of defiance that resounded through the cosmos. In the midst of the chaos, as lives hung in the balance and the very structure of destiny seemed to fracture, the confrontation reached its poignant climax. Captain Hawkins' sacrifice was not in vain. It became a symbol, a beacon that illuminated the darkness, promising that even the gravest losses could ignite the fires of liberation. The bridge, now a shrine to both victory and sorrow, bore silent witness to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to challenge tyranny. The Empire's cold gaze fell, and for a brief, defiant moment, the scales of power trembled. In the balance, the vast silence that followed the cataclysmic battle was punctuated only by the soft hum of emergency systems and the distant whispers of dying engines. In the wake of the resolute dawn's ultimate sacrifice, the cosmos seemed to hold its breath, a universe paused at the precipice of sorrow and rebirth. Amid the drifting fragments of shattered metal and the echo of lost soul, the remnants of the rebellion began to emerge, like wounded birds finding the courage to sing once more. In the dim light of a fractured nebula, rebel vessels gathered around the debris of the once mighty warship, their sensors capturing the last embers of its explosive farewell. The destruction had been catastrophic, yet in its wake, the shockwave of defiance had sown seeds of hope among distant systems. For many, the selfless act of Captain Hawkins had transcended the boundaries of a single battle. It had ignited a spirit that promised to outlast the tyranny of the Galactic Empire. Within a hastily assembled command center aboard the flagship of the rebel, officers pored over the scattered intel and casualty reports. Their voices, subdued by grief yet buoyed by determination, wove tales of heroism and sacrifice. Commander Lyra Miles, her eyes moist with a blend of sorrow and fierce resolve, addressed the gathering with measured words. Today we mourn the loss of a true leader," she began, her tone steady, despite the weight of loss. "But let his courage be the beacon that guides us forward. In his sacrifice, we have found the spark to ignite a revolt that will not be quelled." Across the vastness of space, scattered transmissions carried the bittersweet news to isolated rebel outposts. In makeshift safe havens and hidden sanctuaries, the memory of the now inspired newfound acts of rebellion. Former enemies now found common cause, their once disparate struggles coalescing into a unified stand against a common foe. The Empire, for all its might, could not silence the resounding echoes of a people united by grief and an unbreakable. Back on the battlefield, the Imperial, momentarily disoriented by the shock wave, struggled to recalibrate its relentless advance. Admiral Cale's once iron grip on control wavered as uncertainty crept into the ranks. For the first time in decades, doubt infiltrated the calculated precision of the Empire's conquest. Even within the heart of Nova Imperia, whispers of dissent and the grim realization of inevitable began to surface. In the quiet hours that followed, the stars themselves seemed to weep, a cosmic elegy for lives lost and the toll of endless conflict. Amid this somber tableau, survivors from the Resolute Dawn's crew gathered in salt. They shared quiet stories of camaraderie and valor, their memories imbued with both the bitterness of sacrifice and the sweetness of enduring hope. The corridors of their vessels, once echoing with the clamor of battle, now resonated with determined whispers of rebuild and defiance. Captain Hawkins' legacy lived on not merely in the data logs and heroic legends, but in the hearts of every rebel who dared to dream of a future unshackled by tyranny. His final act had been more than a tactical maneuver. It was a vow etched into the fabric of the cosmos, a promise that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope would prevail. As the first hints of dawn broke across distant horizons signaling the possibility of a new era, the surviving rebels set their course toward a future reborn. They navigated through the wreckage of battle with careful optimism, each step a deliberate march toward reclaiming the stars. In the silence that followed the thunder of war, a quiet determination took root, a commitment to honor the fallen by forging a galaxy where freedom reigned supreme. In that stirring moment, as the echoes of loss intertwined with the melody of hope, the saga of rebellion reached a profound turning point. The legacy of the Resolute and its valiant captain would forever illuminate the path ahead, a path marked by courage, sacrifice and the relentless pursuit of a better tomorrow.